Welcome to the Tattoo Marketing Podcast. On this week's episode, we have Adam Manning, the owner of Nomadica Solutions. He is a specialist for tattoo artists that deals with bookkeeping, accounting, taxes, all the fun things we all love to do so much. Some really great info on what tattoo artists and shop owners should be doing with their money, how they should be saving, preparing for their taxes, stuff that really every tattoo shop owner should take very seriously because there's a lot of really cool hacks and tricks so you can keep more of your money. Really great episode. As always, enjoy.
My name is Adam Manning, and I own Nomadica Solutions. And we are a bookkeeping and tax prep business. I'm the sole owner, so I have no partners, nothing like that. But our main focus at this point is bookkeeping and tax for tattoo artists and tattoo shops. We're not exclusive to that, but that's who the majority of our people are. It's the majority of our clientele.
Got it. Got it. And that is definitely one thing that you don't see a lot of or hear a lot of is taxes, bookkeeping, stuff like that in the tattoo industry. So it's good to have somebody that actually focuses on that and knows about it because I have a bookkeeper. I don't know anything about it. Like I let them handle it. It's kind of this enigma. I feel like for myself, definitely. And I feel like for most people in the tattoo industry, artists, shop owners, stuff like that. And I was kind of surprised, like, on that topic is we sent out all of the like receipts and invoices, all that stuff to all of our clients so they could write it off because you can write off all your marketing. And I got, I think, 13 emails asking me why I sent that and what they were supposed to do with it. And like, do you not know you can write this? You should be writing this off. You should have always been writing like every year. Like, oh my God, that's huge. So it really showed like how there's really not enough knowledge and not enough. Besides you, I think Ryan Boy is the only person I can ever think of that talks about this stuff. And so getting another voice that's a professional in it is huge.
Yeah, and I can't say that we got into this to target tattoo artists and shops. Like that's not really how it happened at all. I was working for a company, doing accounting, in their department. So I wasn't even like a public accountant, but I just had a buddy that called and was like, "Hey man, I've been getting some pretty shitty tax advice. I could use your help." So we just started talking, and then he was like, "Why don't you just like do it for me?" Like,
Understandable.
that's how the conversation went. And I was like, "Well, in order for you to write off those services that you're going to pay me to do this, I have to be legit." So that's where I started my business, and I just did his stuff for him, for a couple of years and didn't pick up anybody else because I was just doing it to help him. But he's big into going to him and not just him, but him and, we've picked up a couple other people. They're big into going to the conventions and doing that circuit. So like we started participating in that just because it was cool and it was fun. And now it's like turned into something, where, yeah, there's a need for it. And I don't have to wear a tie every day. So I definitely love that part. I don't have to cover my tattoos anymore. So I like that part. But yeah, just getting some of that information out there, and especially about the marketing piece and advertising. Like that's such a huge investment in this world. To find somebody that's good, that can deliver on what they're promising you, right? To boost your sales, to boost your appearance, or to boost your presence in the world, to then build your sales and get more clientele, and then write all that shit off on your taxes, like every bit of it. So yeah, like that part's huge, and getting that information out to people is pretty important. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, man. And if anybody listening to this doesn't know, yes, and hopefully it's not too late. Probably is if you're doing your taxes. But yeah, write that out. That's thousand, depending on how much you've spent. Like with our marketing for InkLink, like that's thousands and thousands of dollars that we're able like to write off. It's free money, so everybody should be doing it. Now we kind of met at the Evergreen. I wasn't at the booth at the time, but that's how we got connected. And I know they're pretty picky about who they'll actually let in there, and that's what I love about that convention is they won't let anybody they don't know, they don't trust into that convention. How did you end up there?
So I was split a booth with a client of mine at the last Evergreen. It's the first time they put one on in Portland the fall of 24. And come, the spring of 25, we really weren't ready to come to this one because it's tax season and, we really just weren't prepared for it. But there were a couple other conventions that I went to. One was in Atlanta and then one in Dayton. And we just started reaching out to the owners a little bit like, hey, we usually set up a booth at these things, but we just want to start reaching out to people and, just kind of letting people know that we're here and what we're doing and trying to be of service, because ultimately that's the point and the goal is to be of service, right? And our buddies was like, reach out to the folks at Evergreen. So we did, and we've met some of the owners out there and some of the team members out there, and just told them like, hey, short notice for the spring convention, but maybe in the fall or next year, this is what we're doing. I don't know if we can set up do a seminar or something or whatever that looks like. Just let you know what we're doing flat out. Mm-hmm. And they were like, yeah, why don't you send us a couple of your references, some people that you work with? And when I did that, they said, we have open time for you. We'd love for you to come out and do a seminar. Was not prepared, had about a week to set that up and book flights and all the things. So we did it, but it was super cool. It was a lot of fun. Definitely learned some things about that process. But yeah, getting connected with them, it was about having a couple of clients that work with it. Because I can't say they just were, oh yeah, accounting, that sounds like a good time. Like, no, that's not how that happened at all. But yeah, it was just because we knew some people out there that introduced us for sure.
Got it. Nice, man. I know I heard somebody before I had actually heard about you walking by my tables or our booth saying that they were going to your seminar on it. So hopefully it was a good turnout. Because again, everyone should know this stuff. It's huge to owning a business, scaling a business, making sure that you are set up for your future. Really, it's all about knowing the numbers as much as, I personally don't like any of that shit, but that's why there's guys like you.
Yeah, precisely, right? Like, hey, I'm not creative. I can't fucking draw to save my life. Like, I can't do those things. I can't tattoo. I love to get them, and I love to see what people can draw and all of that. I can't do it. So working with artists has been super cool because I get to experience things that I wouldn't because I don't know how to do that shit. And the trade-off is they don't want to mess with numbers and they don't want to do the business part of stuff. So I get to do what I'm good at. They can keep doing what they're good at. And by allowing folks like us to handle the business end for them, it allows them to grow and scale, and then they can do more of what they love. And that's awesome, right? And one thing that is definitely, I couldn't have told you this because I don't know, but now that we're becoming more involved in this world, we hear over and over how saturated the market is with artists. Like there's a whole bunch of people out there that now want to tattoo and, so it's just not enough to be good at tattooing in order to make good money. You also have to be a good business owner and you have to know how to pull that off. So I think, and it's not just good accounting that gets you there, right? Like you got to have a team of folks. So you got to have marketing, and marketing is like multiple pieces in itself. But so you got to have good marketing and you got to have good accounting. And then obviously you got to have good art. So like you almost need like a team or a coalition of people that's going to help boost your company and your brand and take you to that level you want to go to. Even if, and I said this in the seminar, like, hey, there's some folks that we meet that are like, Adam, I'm not interested in doing any of that. I don't want to be that commercial. I just want to backpack across the United States and, knock out some bangers and make enough money to eat and keep it moving. And that's cool too. So there's still some accounting and tax pieces in order to support that, right? Like you have to be able to know like how you can keep moving from state to state and have enough money to do that, So it doesn't matter what your goal is. To your point, you still have to know the numbers. You still have to know what to do with them.
Yeah, 100%. And I really do agree with the pieces. You should have a little team. There's a book that I absolutely love that I think everybody should read or listen to an audiobook. It's called Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And it's really about like you have time or you have money. If there is something like if you're a tattoo artist, you're making, let's just say you are starting your career, the shop's taking 50%, you're still making about $75 an hour. If there's any task you can get done for under like $20 an hour by hiring somebody else, you should be hiring them. More time to draw, more time to tattoo, more time to make more money.
Yeah. A real good explanation when I was working on my degree and they start talking about economics, micro or macro, whatever you're looking at. If country A is good at growing bananas and country B is good at growing grapes, it doesn't make sense for country A to also grow their own grapes when they're better at growing bananas.
Mhm.
So they grow enough bananas to provide country B and purchase their grapes from them because their time is better utilized growing bananas than it is grapes.
Mhm.
And business is no different. If you are better at drawing and tattooing, then you should be focused there. And how do you take that to the next level, working with your marketing piece and social media and ads and all the things, so that you get more calls, you're getting more messages on people that want new pieces, right? And then you're able to go from there. If you have to stop in the middle of that so that you can classify all your banking transactions, if you're in a state that has sales tax for tattoos, you have to file those sales tax every month. If you have to make quarterly payments, if you have to reconcile your bank accounts once a month, if you have to stop to do all those things, then you're not working on what you're good at. And like that's the key piece is like a do to your point, like if you can pay somebody some money so that you can focus on making more money, then that balances out, right?
Yep. Yep. 100%. And people often, when we talk numbers and how much stuff costs, they think of it as an expense versus an investment. And that's where it's really just, in my opinion, like kind of a mindset shift. Like nobody gets into tattooing to do bookkeeping, to do marketing, to clean the floors of their shop. So actually being able to get that time back is huge if you actually do want to grow. I am curious, what are some of the topics that you covered at the Evergreen?
So at Evergreen, it was big focus on, we were in the middle of tax season and we geared it towards new artists, right? So like it's your first year, maybe your second or third year. What are some things to focus on? And what is the purpose and reasoning behind bookkeeping? Like, why do I even need it? What's the value in
Mm.
it? And the big purpose on bookkeeping is essentially to record and organize all of your company's transactions, right? Everything that goes in, everything that comes out, recording and classifying all of that. Okay. So when all that's done in a year's time period, now you're able to be prepared to do your tax return, which is required. Like it's not, I can't say doing a tax return is a benefit because it's not, it's just a requirement.
Mhm.
So good bookkeeping prepares you for that. And then good bookkeeping gives you the ability to make choices. Okay. And making choices has power when you have good data to work with, right? So we gave some solid examples we played some scenarios out where in January and February, maybe somebody put some money into marketing, but they didn't see any results within 6 or 7 months. And they determined that marketing company was putting out TV ads for their tattoo shop.
Mhm.
Maybe TV ads aren't the best. So they dropped that company, went with a different company. So it was a whole just playing scenarios out by looking at your financial statements. Okay. And that term is used a lot in my world that most people may not understand what that means. So financial statements are, when we say that term, it's very specific. We're talking about your profit and loss. We're talking about your balance sheet and your cash flow. Those are three very specific reports that provide some amount of information about your business. And we went through very briefly on how to analyze some of those statements to determine what you need to do as a business owner and what decisions need to be made. And you can do that by just following the data that you find in your financial reports.
And so how would somebody find those? Are they built into, like, let's say Square or Stripe, or how does a shop owner or artist figure those things out or find them?
So there's multiple ways. And my company actually, I constructed something very simple for people that I'm like in the process of like kind of putting it together to where maybe we can sell it or something. I don't know. because I've had a couple people need something like this. But Square and Stripe, they do offer some reporting, but it's not going to get you everything that you're looking for. It's going to do some good things in terms of sales. It might have some pieces on expense, but it's not going to give you a total picture. Okay. Programs like QuickBooks can do that. Xero is another one that are actual accounting software programs. And some of them are, especially QuickBooks at this point, they have some subscriptions that are as low as $10 a month. So they're pretty easy to work with. And then with subscriptions, like you only get so many users, but as an accountant, you can do your own bookkeeping, buy that subscription, and invite people like me to come and oversee it. And it doesn't add to the cost because I'm an accountant and I'm a QuickBooks Pro advisor. So that was a little plug right there. But QuickBooks isn't the best program in the world, but it's very effective and it's very user friendly. So that's why I say that. But bottom line, to answer the question, those reports are only going to come from someone that knows how to create them or from an accounting software. Things like Stripe or Square, those are point of sale systems, POS systems. So they're going to help you process sales, and it'll provide some level of information, but not entirely.
Got it. And yeah, before I actually had a bookkeeper, that is what I did. I had QuickBooks. It was probably $15, $20 a month, and had a business card, and that's where all the business transactions went on. It made it extremely easy to just go in there once a month, categorize everything, and then when tax season came around, I gave the person access to it, and they did their thing. It made it super easy. So at a very least, would you say that's what shops should be doing, or anybody that owns a business?
Absolutely. At the very least, I always recommend this tax season. I've picked up a lot of people that were new, mostly through that seminar. If they're doing podcasts like this, we're getting a lot of activity, which is super cool. But people that are like, oh yeah, I keep up with my QuickBooks, everything is solid. And then I get in there and find out that maybe they had 3 or 4 people that was managing it last year at different times. So there's lots of different things happening. It's always good to have a professional. They don't have to manage it from day to day. You can absolutely do that on your own, but it's always helpful to have somebody come in, at least once a year, to come in and look at it and make sure everything is where it needs to be.
Definitely good. And again, it is, especially if you have a card that only you use for business expenses, it is stupidly easy and takes 10 minutes to set up, and everyone should be doing it. What's the next step after that? Let's say, it's a bigger shop or they have a couple artists, they want to move to the next level of bookkeeping. What does that look like?
So if you got a shop and you've got multiple artists, there's going to be some questions that I would have. Do you own the building? Are you renting the building? You're renting out to people. And so now you've got rental income, making sure that those are classified appropriately, because rental income is taxed differently than what your service income is. Service meaning you actually doing tattoos. And then we would start looking at business structure, because there's always some tax advantages to looking at how your operation is set up, right? Whether it's time to elect as an S corp, or whether it's time to separate. Maybe you own that building, and maybe it's time to separate your businesses and have one that owns the building and one that does the tattooing. So there's obviously going to be different strategies. Next level bookkeeping is just making sure that all your banks are separate. I can't stress that enough. It's not always necessary in the very beginning, but as soon as you can get a bank account that's designated towards your business, do that. And that's going to really set you up for success. And then I get the question, well, if my business account is set up for tattooing only, how do I pay my bills then? You just draw one lump sum, once a week, every 2 weeks, or whatever, and transfer it to your personal account. Something that's easily identifiable when you are classifying your bank account, that this was an owner's draw, and there's no mystery there. And that's the best way to keep it clean if you have to use your personal account. But so yeah, to answer your question, separating your accounts is absolutely important, and getting involved in tax strategy is probably the next level in terms of bookkeeping and what that looks like.
Got it. And something I want to touch on real quick is So if it's an individual artist working at a shop, is it worth them having a separate account for any supplies, their booth rent or percentages or anything like that? Or would you wait until they actually have like an established LLC or something like that?
I mean, in my mind, I think it's always beneficial to separate them,
Mm,
right? But it's only going to be beneficial if you can get an account that you're not paying for. You
mm,
know, like even having a separate personal account, if you bank through Wells Fargo and you can just open another checking account so that only business things happen through that account, like that's beneficial. You may not get all the benefits of having a business account. Sometimes business accounts cost money.
mm.
So when should a person do that? I say as soon as you can. Just again to separate your personal expenses from your business expenses. Because again, that's going to start giving you that power,
Mm.
that information to be able to make choices. If you're looking at your personal account, your tattooing money's coming in, you're paying rent to the shop owner, you're also paying rent to where you're living or whatever, like it muddies the waters and you can't really determine like how much is my business making versus how much is my business spending, because rent and your utility bills at home would not constitute as an expense to your business. So how do you really know how much money your business is making unless you're tracking that diligently?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it also sounds like even doing that as an individual artist will also make like doing your taxes much easier.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Because I got people right now that, I've got a fee for doing taxes. And if someone shows up and I'm like, okay, have you kept track of your revenue and your expenses for the year? And they're like, yeah, I got a 1099. And then I'm going to send you all my bank statements for the past year. And I say, okay, is this account for business only or is it business and personal? And they're like, well, it's business and personal. Now I have to come through every bank statement to determine is this a business expense or a personal expense? And that's just clock, me clocked in on your account, and it's going to cost you more money. So yeah, it just takes time and it's more costly to not separate. So yeah, number one hint or tip I would give an artist when they're first starting out is start tracking how much you are bringing in and how much is going out. Business only. We're not talking about Disney Plus or Subway or none of those things. We're just talking about needles, ink, stencils. If you have to pay for your own, hygiene or first aid products, like all of those things, keep track of all of that stuff.
Got it. And I do want to touch on LLCs, S corps, and stuff like that. But before that, what are some things that you've seen that people don't write off that they could be?
People always overlook marketing and they overlook it doesn't cost much to get a domain, but they overlook that. They overlook whatever software that they're using to draw up their tattoos. So if they're using, Adobe or Procreate or Canva, like if they neglect those things.
Mhm.
And there are some states that require continuing education to maintain their tattoo license. So all of those things need to be included as well. And one thing that for those artists that are doing long sessions, I know several artists that, if they're doing a piece that's 4 or 5 hours long, they're going to break and make sure that their canvas is eating to keep their blood sugar up so they don't pass out and all those things. And it was told to me like there's a trauma response in doing that amount of tattooing for that long, especially if it's going to go into 7, 8, 9 hours. And you got to keep your blood sugar up, so you got to eat. And those artists, in my experience, always bought me food. So they would order something and have it delivered, and we would eat and break and all that. All of that stuff needs to be expensed, and it needs to be an expense in a way that it's not a business meal. So there's a difference between expensing a business meal and then purchasing something for a client because they need it in order to get the tattoo. So, if you're buying your clients meals, like all of that needs to be included as well. If you go to conventions, so if you are flying to a convention, your booth rent, your ticket, like your gate pass to get into the convention, your plane tickets, hotels, all that stuff is expense to get you to that convention. Now, if you go to an amusement park while you're there, that doesn't count. But
Mhm.
anything that costs to get you there and to get you into that show is going to be expensed. So conventions and everything that comes with that, meals, especially if you're buying clients' meals, and software. Those are the big pieces that I see people forget.
Got it. If you're at a convention, are you able to write the food off while you're there?
You can, and there's a limit to that. So there are travel meals, and then there's business meals. So like it's kind of within within reason. Like there's some level of like conjecture with that, right? So if you went to a 5-star restaurant, you spent $3,000 or $4,000 on a dinner, like that's going to be kind of questionable. And I'm going to have that conversation with you. But if you're at that convention and you went and had lunch with some other artists and you're networking and stuff, like, yeah, I'm going to write the whole thing off. Like that's what
Got it. And correct me if I'm wrong, but if you drive to a convention, you can write that off as well, right? The expense of gas.
you can. And I also will always have questions with people on that too. When it comes to your vehicle, that always needs to be a conversation
Mhm.
because it's kind of a delicate matter. And it's delicate in the fact of your tax professional needs to be able to clearly answer questions if the IRS were ever to ask. So, big thing, if you're going to enter your car into service and your company is going to use your car for business reasons, you have to keep track of your mileage.
Mhm.
Like at the start of the year, at the end of the year, and then we need to know like how much of that is business and how much of that is personal. So it's not that it can't be done, but there is some amount of like it just requires some diligence. Now, when you're talking gas to go to a convention only, those are all additional travel costs. So in my mind and in my opinion, if you rented a car and drove to a convention, the rental car is an expense as well. So I gave you a long answer. The fuel absolutely to a convention is able to write off. If you're going to use your vehicle for business purposes, that needs to be a more in-depth conversation.
Got it. What about, like, let's say you live 30 minutes from the shop and you're driving there and back every day. Can you write that off?
So again, that's a conversation, and it really comes down to how you are working with the shop. Okay, so if you own your shop, then I would say no, you cannot write off travel time between you and your shop that you own. Okay,
Mhm.
but if you're a contractor and that shop is 1099 you, that can be a different conversation because now essentially you're a contractor and you're not an employee or you're not, you don't own that shop. So again, additional conversation.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So moving to kind of the LLC S Corp thing, this is something I like to talk about because I moved to an S Corp too late, and the lady told me I could have saved $16,000 that I had in my pocket if I would have done it the year before, and that really hurt my soul.
Yeah.
So, can you talk about what an S Corp is, when people should go become one, like benefits, stuff like that?
Yeah. Okay. So it's a man, this is a big question.
I know.
And I'm gonna give some information and it's going to be accurate, but there's always going to be a but also this and also
Mm,
this kind of stuff. So the IRS looks at things from two perspectives. You are a flow through entity or you are a corporation. If you're a corporation, the corporation gets taxed before it distributes money to a shareholder. If you're a flow through, then all sales and taxes flow through to that direct person. Okay. Flow through includes LLCs, sole proprietors, it includes everybody. In partnership, it includes everybody. Corporation is just that corporation. An S Corp is a hybrid, it's somewhere in between. Okay. And an S Corp is only valid and relevant in the tax world. Okay. So if you call the state of wherever you're at and say, I want to start an S Corp, they're going to say that's not how that works. It's only relevant to the IRS and how you're taxed. You still have to structure your business based on how your state works. Okay. Whether you're a sole proprietor or an LLC or whatever. So S Corp is about tax, and it allows some tax benefit, and it looks like this. So when you're an LLC and you have $100,000 in sales for the year, you take your $100,000 and you deduct all of your expenses, and then what's left over, you get taxed as self-employment income. Okay, and that's roughly 15%, give or take a percent point. So 15% of self-employment. And then after that, as an individual, you're able to deduct like your standard deduction. If you're married, it's ×2. If you got kids or children or other dependents, that it knocks off from there. And that determines what your federal liability is and your state liability. But that self-employment income is taxed of gross sales minus business expense, boom, 15%. With the S Corp, it allows you to draw from your business and not pay self-employment tax. But there are some key points you have to consider. In order to be in compliance with being an S Corp, you as the owner have to go on payroll. Okay. Now that part's going to there's a bunch of accountants out there right now that are like, but I'm wording this for a tattoo artist or shop that's electing for this. Okay. So keep that in mind. But if you're going to elect to be an S Corp, you have to go on payroll and you have to pay yourself a reasonable amount of salary. Okay. Reasonable amount is subjective, but the IRS kind of says we'd like for you to be about 60-40. So 60% goes to your payroll, 40% is allowed after that. And I'll come back to that. And that's a rule of thumb. So you go on payroll. If you're making $100,000, you take all your deductions, you're on payroll paying yourself every dollar that is 100,000 minus all those expenses, and know that payroll is involved in those expenses. Mm-hmm. Whatever's left over, you are distributed. It's distributed to you as an owner, and you don't pay self-employment tax. So you save 15% on those monies after that. Now,
it's huge. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, and it's significant, but it's only relevant if you're also going to have some additional costs, right? Because you're going to be payrolls involved. So you got to have a payroll service. You got to have somebody like me that's going to process it for you. You have to file all those payroll returns. That has to be done. Although most payroll services do that shit for you. So that's a nice feature, but payroll is important. You also are going to have to pay an accountant to file tax returns, and an 1120 is going to cost you more to have somebody file your tax return because you're filing an individual and a business return now. So there's cost with that. And ultimately, the key thing is when I mentioned about separating your expenses and your bank accounts, you absolutely cannot have a bank account with personal expenses coming out of that bank account if you're an S Corp. Can't do it. Because if the IRS ever comes and takes a look at it and says, wow, you've got your, maybe I almost want to say Disney Plus, but that's probably not the best. But if you got some, odd membership to, I don't know, Disneyland on there, and it's coming out of your business account, they're going to raise red flags. They're going to come and tell you, you cannot use your business account for personal expenses. Mm-hmm. And what does that matter? If the IRS revokes your election status for an S Corp, you can never get it back. So if you lose it, it's gone. You can't get it back.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, hey, don't fuck that up.
Yeah, that's huge.
To it. Don't fuck it up. But I said all that, but all I'm telling you is separate your bank account, get an accountant to help you with this process, and you're going to save money. Mm-hmm. Now, you have to be making enough money in order for all of those costs to be offset, right? So I said, if you had $100,000 in sales, that's not going to do it. Because if you got $100,000 in sales and then you've got all of your deductions, your ink, your convention costs and all that stuff, and now you're only cranking out $20,000 in net, it's not going to make sense because you have to pay me and you got to pay, you got to pay for these other things. So rule of thumb, and people are going to cringe at this too, rule of thumb is you have to net somewhere between 70 and 100,000 before it makes sense to be elected as an S Corp. Net meaning after sales, after expense, your net is 70 to 100.
Perfect. That was exactly what I was going to ask, was for you to break down what net is for people that don't know. Can you just really quick go over gross and net? I know that's fairly simple
Yeah.
stuff for most, but just to be
Yeah.
sure so people know.
Yeah. So gross simply is your max sales for the year. Every tattoo that you sold is your gross. Okay. And net is going to be your gross sales minus all of your direct and indirect costs. Direct meaning things that go into your tattoo, ink, stencils, those kind of things. Indirect costs. So accounting, marketing, all of that stuff that you've written off. So gross minus direct, indirect costs leaves you with net.
Thank you. Perfect. Yep. Okay, cool. Well, that's a lot of info, man. I like it.
Yeah.
So if someone is making, I mean, let's say they're netting 80K just as an individual artist, you don't have employees, anything like that. Is it worth, or can you become an S Corp, or how does that work?
If we're talking 80 net, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's reasonable. You know, you just have to, you would have to be, I would ask the artist, I would say, is this your first year at 80? You know, was this a good year and you anticipate not making 80 in the future? Or is this like you've shown a level of progression and now you've reached 80? You know, those kinds of questions. Because what I would hate for someone is to start to elect as an S Corp and then it end up costing them in the long run. But yeah, I would say it's perfectly reasonable. If you're netting 80,000, yeah, I think it's reasonable.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah. Perfect. I know I've taken up almost an hour of your time. Got probably about 5 minutes left. I'll let you go, man. But any other stuff you think artists and shop owners should know that you see mistakes being made or people just don't know about?
Yeah, the biggest thing is bookkeeping is necessary. How in depth you go with it is going to be dependent on your level of gross sales and your level of expenses going out. But even if you don't have a high volume or everything, your operation is very simple, you still need some level of bookkeeping. Okay. It can be very simple though, and I can always help with that. Please reach out. I'm more than willing to help you figure out a way to do it simply. And then tax. One of the biggest, like, hey, we all hate tax. I don't work for the IRS. I get no benefit in you paying them $10,000 or $10. Like, I don't care. But if you are making good money and you're out buying things and the IRS ever comes knocking at your door, it could be, you know, you don't want that to happen. So be compliant. Like, and that's hard for a lot of us, including myself, to say, like, you need to be compliant. But essentially, like, the system is what it is. You can try to operate out of it all you want to. And I'm not going to say you're going to get caught. You know, I don't know. You can drive up and down the road doing the speed limit or, you know, going over the speed limit every single day, but it only takes once to get a ticket. And it's a ticket you don't want to pay. So be compliant with tax. So these are all topics that you're unfamiliar with. It's perfectly reasonable. Get in touch with somebody that is, though. You know? So the IRS will absolutely tell you that ignorance is not a defense. So to tell the IRS I didn't know, they don't care. And that's hard, and that's, you know, it's tough. But start some bookkeeping and be prepared for tax. Is the big things.
Definitely. And just on that real quick, one other thing to think about with paying taxes and doing everything above board, if you ever want to buy a house, if you want to buy a car, if you want to get a loan, you won't be able to do it unless you can show those numbers and that you actually on paper with the IRS make a good salary. So
Absolutely.
There's a ton of artists that I've talked to that want to do that stuff and they can't because they lived, as Brian Roy says, the pirate life, and they don't, they don't report anything.
Yes. Hey, Brian Roy says things, and I think he's crazy for saying it, but he's like, the system is designed, and if you follow the system, you will succeed. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, to say that, I'm like, no, they want to take my money. How's that going to work? But I also will say, I'm going to run through this really quick, and I'm going to say a bunch of stuff, and nobody's going to remember it. That's okay. As an S Corp, you're now on payroll, right? And you can do some creative things with payroll. So if you're on payroll, you can start taking your money and putting it in a 401k and get yourself health insurance. Now, all of that stuff becomes deductible on your taxes because you're on payroll. So there's things that if you play by the rules, there's some advantages for you here and there. And you just need someone to help, like, kind of walk you through this stuff. And then you're like, well, where's all my money going then? And I don't have any money after all this is done. I got to pay taxes. I got to pay you to file my taxes. I'm putting money in my 401k and all of this. Hey, we're just trying to make sure you got enough money to pay your rent and you are living comfortably. All those distributions come to you, or whatever that looks like. Even not an S corp, there's advantages to being an LLC. I want to say this. I got off track on the S corp piece. There's advantages to being an LLC. As an LLC, you can hire your children and have them work for you. Like you can have 5-year-old kids on your payroll as an LLC and pay them money, right?
And isn't it like up to 10 grand a year tax free, something like that? Yeah.
Yeah. As long as it's under the standard deduction. So you can pay them and they file their own tax return. They get anything that they paid in federal tax, they're going to get back. And I've known plenty of people to set that up to where it automatically just 100% of their pay went into a 401k. So their kids got money going into a 401k their whole lives. Or there's also college programs and stuff that you can get in, like college finance programs. So they're investing into their kids. So like, yeah, they're taking their money, and Ryan Roy is big on this. Take your money and break it into pieces and spread it out. So you're not just blowing all your money. And now all of a sudden, like, well, where's all my money going? Well, my kids have a college fund. I have a retirement fund. I've saved up and bought this building that my S corp owns. Like you have things, like you have options now. So yeah, man, all that. Like I spun out and said a whole lot of shit. I'm pretty good about that. But like, hey, I get excited about helping people. Like if you have this craft and you have this talent and it makes money, like you can use that to now provide for your family and set up a future, and you get to do what you love. And like, that is like the marriage between my accounting business and a tattoo artist business is like, you get to keep doing what you love. And obviously I love doing what I'm doing because you can see that, you can tell that, like I'm getting excited, I'm salivating a little bit, like you can see that. So like that's the marriage between Nomadica and artists, is because we get to help y'all do what you love doing and make money doing it.
100%, man. Where can people find you?
We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We have a webpage, www.nomadicasolutions.com. We got emails, whatever.
What's your Instagram handle?
Nomadica_solutions.
Okay. And that's nomadic and then an A solutions, Nomadica Solutions. Okay.
That's
So
right.
I messed that one up the first time.
Oh yeah. Hey, no worries. Yeah.
Awesome, man. I massively appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Hey, it's been fun, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.